boys and girls. Today we're going to be reading The Smartest Giant in Town. I'm sat up on my landing in my house because it makes me feel very tall when I look down there, downstairs. George was a giant.
Hey.
There he is, look. The scruffiest giant in town.
Mummy, can I just kneel?
Yeah. He always wore the same pair of old brown sandals and the same old patched up gown. I wish I wasn't the scruffiest giant in town, he said sadly. Oh, and he is so sad. Poor George.
This is number one.
It is. But one day, George noticed a new shop. It was full of smart clothes. So he bought a smart shirt,
How fancy.
a smart pair of trousers, a smart belt, a smart stripy tie, some smart socks with diamonds up the sides, and a pair of smart, shiny shoes.
Shiny.
Now I'm the smartest giant in town, he said proudly.
Loud.
George left his old clothes behind in the shop. He was about to go home when he heard a sound. On the pavement stood a giraffe. A giraffe? Do you reckon it was that one? It was sniffing sadly. Oh,
Poor giraffe.
what's the matter? Asked George. He does look like our giraffe, doesn't he?
Yeah. But different eyes.
It's my neck, said the giraffe. It's so very long and so very cold. I wish I had a long warm scarf.
Oh, don't worry.
Aww. Cheer up, said George, and he took off his stripy tie. It didn't match my socks anyway, he said, as he wound it round and round the giraffe's neck. It made a wonderful scarf.
Yeah, he likes it.
Thank you, said the giraffe. As George strode towards
La, la, la,
home,
la, la.
he sang to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George came to a river. On a boat stood a goat who was bleating loudly. "What's the matter?" asked George. There he is, look. "It's my sail," said the goat. "It blew away in a storm. I wish I had a strong new sail for my boat." Oh, I think I know what George is going to do. "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his new white shirt. "It kept coming untucked anyway," he said, as he tied it to the mast of the goat's boat. "It made a magnificent sail."
Well, it's the same. But longer.
"Thank you," said the goat. George strode on, singing to himself. "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. But look me up and down. I'm the smartest giant in town."
Mum,
George came to a tiny ruined house. Beside the house stood a white mouse with lots of baby mice. Shall we show them?
okay.
There we go. And there's the white mouse and there's all her baby mice. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's our house," squeaked the mother. "It burned down and now we have nowhere to live." "Oh my gosh. I wish we had a nice new house. Look, there's a house. On fire. Oh dear. Now she's got nowhere for all her babies." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off one of his shiny shoes. "It was giving me blisters anyway," he said, as the mouse and her babies scrambled inside.
Hey, fancy.
The shoe made a perfect home for them. "Thank you," they squeaked. Can you squeak thank you?
Thank you.
Really squeak? Thank you. Oh, that was good. George had to hop along the road now, but he didn't mind. As he hopped, he sang to himself. My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. But look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town.
He can hop well.
And he can hop well. He can hop really well. George came to a campsite. Beside a tent stood a fox who was crying. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my sleeping bag," said the fox. "I dropped it in a puddle. I wish I had a warm, dry sleeping bag." Oh, you don't want a soggy sleeping bag, do you? Oh, nobody wants a soggy sleeping bag. "Cheer up," said George, and took off one of his socks. The ones with the diamonds up the sides. "It was tickling my toes anyway," he said, as the fox snuggled into it. Look at the fox. A sock is a great sleeping bag for a fox, isn't it? Look. "It made a fine sleeping bag. Thank you," said the fox. George hopped on, singing to himself. "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. But look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town."
Uncle, I don't like his toes though.
His wiggly toes. George came to a big, squelchy bog. Beside the bog stood a dog who was howling. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's this bog," said the dog. "I need to get across, but I keep getting stuck in the mud." Oh, poor dog. "I wish there was a safe, wet, dry path." Well, what could the giant use for the path? Oh, Fletcher knows. "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his smart new belt. "It was squashing my tummy anyway," he said, as he laid it down over the bog. "It made an excellent path. Look at that." "Thank you," said the dog. "It does make an excellent path." The wind started to blow, but George didn't mind. He hopped on, singing to himself. "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. My belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. But..." Oh, I can see his pants. "Oh dear, I hope his trousers don't fall down."
He'll be silly.
"But my trousers are falling down! I'm the coldest giant in town! Oh no!" Oh, suddenly George felt sad and shivery and not at all smart. He stood on one foot and thought, "I'll have to go back to the shop and buy some more clothes." He turned round and hopped all the way back to the shop. That's a long way to hop. He'll be worn out. But when he got there, it was closed. "Oh no!" cried George. He sank down onto the doorstep and a tear ran down his nose. Oh, George. He felt as sad as all the animals he had met on his way home. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a bag with something familiar poking out of the top. George took a closer look. "My gown!" he yelled. "Look, my dear old gown and sandals." George put them on. They felt wonderfully comfortable. "I'm the cosiest giant in town," he cried, and he danced back home along the road. Isn't he lovely? Outside his front door stood all the animals he had helped. They were carrying an enormous present. "Come on, George," they said. "Open it." George untied the ribbon. Inside was a beautiful gold paper crown and a card. "Look inside the card, George," said the animals. George put the crown on his head. Can you see? And all the animals are here. The giraffe and the fox and the goat and the mice. Inside it said, your tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. Your shirt is a boat with a sail for a goat. Your shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of your socks is a bed for a fox. Your belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. So here is a very fine crown to go with the sandals and gown of the kindest giant in town.
Can you read it to me?
He really was the kindest giant in town, wasn't he?
Can you read it to me? No, just read it to me.
Read
it.
We'll read it again in a second, okay? That was the smartest giant in town. I hope you enjoyed it, boys and girls. See you tomorrow in a wave.
Bye.